That explosive Oval Office meeting over Trump's border wall may have gotten the big headlines, but as the threat of a Christmas shutdown looms, the White House is quietly moving ahead on another controversial immigration proposal, which could stop a lot of people here already legally from getting permanent status. The Trump administration's new revised public charge rule, as it's called, would keep people who need or would likely need certain government benefits like food stamps and Medicaid from getting green cards, expanding existing restrictions on cash-based assistance that have been in place for years. And while his base is on board, an overwhelming 200,000-plus public comments were submitted on the proposal in just 60 days, many from critics who argue the rule would give the government too much leeway to decide what exactly makes someone likely to use public benefits. And several states have threatened to sue to keep the change from taking effect, including Massachusetts, making this just the latest in a long list of immigration battles for the president. Joining me are Marion Davis. She's Director of Communications for the Massachusetts Immigrant and Refugee Advocacy Coalition of Mirror. Good to see you again, Marion. Thanks for being here. And Republican from Taunton, State Representative Shaunna O'Connell. Representative, great to see you. Thank you, as always. What's your problem with this?
I don't have a problem with it.
I don't know what your problem. My apologies. Why is this? Why are you into this? Why is this a good thing?
Well, I think it's good to have good immigration policy that brings people into the United States that are going to be a benefit to America and Americans. We spend like $1.8 trillion annually on public assistance programs, and there's only so much money to go around, a finite amount, and we need to make sure that we're using that in a smart way.
So an Americans first kind of approach is yours. Is that a fair way to put it?
I think we need to really prioritize and concentrate on Americans. We have an opiate problem here that we're trying to tackle. We have a mental health system that is in need of funds.
So I meant to ask you, not her. What is what?
Oh, we love this. No, actually,
what's wrong with exactly what the representative is saying? With limited resources, put them for people who are here as citizens first.
First of all, immigrants pay a ton in taxes. In Massachusetts alone, immigrants pay about $8.4 billion a year in federal taxes and about $3.4 billion in state and local taxes. In fact, 1 in 7 tax dollars that the state and local governments receive comes from immigrants. So to say, oh, well, benefits are all for citizens only, so why? That's completely unfair. And number two, this proposal is much bigger than who's getting benefits, who isn't getting benefits. Most immigrants don't qualify for any benefits at all. And the benefits that they do qualify for, they qualify for good reasons. For example, we don't want pregnant women to not get basic prenatal care. We don't want little kids going without basic vaccinations and things like that. So to say,
not for just reasons of humanity, but because if they don't get it down the line, there'll be a greater expense.
It's inhumane, and it's also bad for public health. It's also bad for our hospitals, who have to then provide uncompensated care.
I want to get to that. Homeland Security statement in defense of this, which is different from the representative, says the proposed rule will promote immigrant self-sufficiency and protect finite. Well, this part is what she was saying. Finite resources by ensuring they're not likely to become burdens on American taxpayers. What's wrong with that position?
No, first of all, everybody who comes to a new country usually doesn't start at the very top. And I don't know that the representative would want suddenly everybody who comes to the United States to be wealthy enough to become, the bosses of all the companies and take all the high-paying jobs and take no low-paying jobs.
Can we just stay on that for a minute? Isn't she on to something that essentially what the message of this is? It's sort of the S-hole countries versus the Norwegians, to quote Donald Trump. Wealthier, more likely to be white immigrants, probably won't need benefits. Immigrants from countries who are people of color, likely lower income, are the ones who this is going to nail. I mean, so there is that kind of element too, no?
So, it talks about the federal poverty guidelines, and we want people to come. You don't have to be wealthy. You don't have to make, $1 million to come here. That's not what these guidelines do, and that's not what they're for.
But you have to be wealthier.
You have to be wealthier than the people of Taunton, Representative.
That's not true.
If you do not make 250% of the federal poverty line, which for a family of 4 is $63,000, that starts to be counted against you. So.
It goes from 125% up to 250%.
Right,
so you're not automatically qualified if you don't make 250% of the poverty.
The only way that these factors don't get used against you is if you make more than $250,000 a year, which is considerably more than the median income in Taunton.
250,000.
I mean, 250%, I'm sorry.
Represent a couple of things. What's wrong with the pre-existing rules? We've forever, I mean, a lot of people have heard this public charge thing who are outraged. I'm amongst them. What I learned today, we have had some limitation based on cash-based assistance for a long period of time in this country. Why isn't the existing limitation, why isn't that enough? Why do we have to include, and by the way, that existing limitation did not include food stamps, did not include critical things like health benefits. Why not leave it where it was?
Because we know that too many people are coming here and accessing benefits. And when
Worked
you
for
come
135 years.
Well, does it work? Because look at all the money that we're spending on public assistance programs. Look at the people here that are suffering. Like I said, our mental health problem, the opiate addiction, we need more money for education, all these things.
Representative, would it be better if all these people simply didn't come and didn't pay taxes and didn't work in our economy, fueling our economy? Would Massachusetts be better off if everybody who doesn't qualify under these standards simply doesn't come?
If you pay taxes and you're not, this doesn't affect people who, excuse me, this doesn't affect people who have green cards, who are paying their taxes, who are not accessing benefits. Even if you have a green card and you are accessing benefits, it doesn't affect you. We're talking going forward. We cannot just have have people coming into the country continually who are going to be on the welfare system.
1 in every 5 workers in the healthcare system in your state, in our state, is an immigrant. And the reality, and so with low unemployment rate as we do, labor shortage on steroids if it turns out that this proposal would go into play. Let me quote you somebody else if I can, who I think agrees with Marion's position. I'll read you from a couple of statements. The proposed rule would increase homelessness and family separation amongst immigrant families and citizen children by discouraging immigrants who are lawfully present. Another one, evidence leads us to expect a substantial chilling effect in the number of non-citizens applying for or remaining enrolled in Mass Health. Many of them will go uninsured, increasing their risk of illness and mortality. You directed that those statements be sent in response to this?
I'm sorry?
Republican Governor Charlie Baker, his people, at his request, sent in these things saying this is a horrible idea. What do you know about it that he doesn't?
Look, it doesn't affect people that are here with a legal status, with green cards, that want to apply for citizenship.
But he must know that. Charlie Baker must know that, doesn't he?
Continuing, he must, I'm assuming.
But he's just
it doesn't affect children. Children's benefits aren't counted. So, to say that every time we do some kind of welfare reform or benefit assistance reform, whatever it is, there are a ton of people that come out screaming it's going to be a disaster, there's going to be, panic in the streets, but that doesn't happen. I mean, look at the 1996 welfare reform.
Which was devastating.
That was not a disaster.
That
was not a disaster. What it did was increase employment among people, and it lowered poverty among children.
Can you do me one favor before I go to Marion? Is Charlie Baker just wrong on this? He doesn't get it?
I'm not going to say Charlie Baker's wrong, but he has a different opinion. I don't agree with Charlie Baker on everything.
I think first of all we need to recognize that this is not about people coming here and becoming completely dependent on the government, because that is already the standard that if you are primarily dependent on the government, you can't. This is about people have bad things happen in their lives or have periods where they have a need, and we are saying if we think that there is a possibility that at some point you might have that happen in your life, we don't want you in this country.
No,
and that's an enormous amount.
It takes into account
that is what
circumstances like that. It takes
if you're 61 years old, if you're older than 61 years old, that could be used against you.
It takes into account devastating
if you have a
circumstances
disability,
or
if you're
hardships.
Ill.
It takes into, and there's plenty of people that can still come under other protected status if you're a victim of violence, plenty of those things. And we have, I think, 81 public assistance programs in this country, and we are only looking at, I think, 7 or 9.
Representative,
you have 15 seconds, then we got to go. Thank you. 15 seconds.
This is an incredibly absurd rule that they're trying to set up. They're trying to set up these incredible standards that your parents would probably not have qualified, my parents probably wouldn't have qualified, your probably wouldn't. Do we want an America that is only for the wealthy and the white?
It is not only going to be for the wealthy and the white.
We'll continue it sometime soon. Representative, thanks as always. Appreciate it, Marion. Good to see you. Thank you both.